10 essential Devil May Cry 5 tips to know before you play. Those impossibly pretty demon hunters are back in business, and you're probably after some Devil May Cry 5 tips to help out with all the impending hacking. Whether that's just mastering the best devil breakers, the combat, getting more orbs, or, checks notes, using motorcycle chainsaws? All while splitting your time between Devil May Cry 5's trio of 3 different heroes, each with their own different skill set. 1. Do your history homework. If Devil May Cry 5 is your first dip in the series, knowing the history is especially important, but it's still useful even if you're a veteran. The story of Devil May Cry 5 expects a lot of prior knowledge from the player, and it can be a bit overwhelming when all of these characters that aren't Dante are thrown into the mix. Even worse, most of the protagonists even look pretty similar or have similar names, so don't be worried if it's all a touch difficult to pass. Thankfully, there is a History of DMC video on the main menu that should solve this problem and help later story beats land with an aha and not a what? 2. Explore the levels thoroughly. The team behind Devil May Cry 5 are clearly a bunch of devilish tricksters, as they love to hide collectibles and crucial items just out of view. Whenever the game pulls you out of a cutscene or set piece, make sure to get in the habit of looking around. Usually you'll find some red cluster orbs or some other useful resource. Make sure you also explore the carefully crafted levels. As well as admiring the architecture, you can find secret collectibles and pathways that offer fun challenges to eat up your time. So make sure you keep an eye out, especially for blue and purple orb fragments and secret missions which also give you blue orb fragments. These permanent upgrades increase your vitality and devil trigger gauges and are well worth the effort of seeking them out. 3. Kill healing and summoning enemies first. You want to focus on killing enemies that heal or summon friends as soon as possible, because things get pretty difficult with multiple enemies around. Wipe out anything that either heals or creates enemies as a matter of priority, and ignore the grunts until you do. During the early game, Nero will be introduced to Empusa insects with a green rear end that exists to heal their pals. Kill them first or you'll never get rid of the other bad things. This tracks for the mid-game Eldritch Maws that spawn lizard demons and the late-game skeleton summoners. There's a clue in the title there. Basically, always make sure you deal with anything that's adding to your problems before you try solving them. 4. Don't be afraid of using your Devil Breakers. NERO'S Devil Breakers are weaponized robotic arms with a multitude of uses in combat. Something like the Gerbera helps boost you up to high platforms, while the Punchline launches a flurry of pounding rocket punches and lets you ride it like a skateboard. You can only carry a few at a time, and it's easy to worry about using them because they break easily if you take damage whilst you are. Plus you can also destroy them to get a single-use super attack when you're in grave danger. Don't worry too much though, as you can expand how many you can carry while you play and find more in a level as you explore. They're far too useful not to use in combat and will vastly help improve your style ranking. 5. Use the training area called the Void to master tricky moves. You may think you're comfortable with the combat if you've played the other Devil May Cry games, but there's a lot to master here. Don't ignore the game's suggestion to enter the Void, a training mode where you can pick enemies to fight and practice your skills on. The movements required to pull off some of the game's most powerful attacks and combos are pretty precise, and getting the muscle memory locked in early will make your experience much more fluid. The fighting in Devil May Cry 5 is easily the best part, so don't stick to the easy combos. Get out of your comfort zone and learn a devastating cocktail of moves that will increase your style. 6. Study the skill list. It's no secret that you will forget some of the moves in this game. There are way too many to remember, but keeping score on what each Devil Breaker does and what their secret special effects are will pay dividends in your demon slaying escapades. Dante has far too many weapons to keep track of, and it's easy to get into a routine with V. For example, it's barely explained what V's Nightmare can do, and this abominable beast is one of the most devastating assets in the game. Spend some time reading the skill list and make sure you know what you're doing. 7. Focus on mobility skills early on. Early in Devil May Cry 5, as you build up a bank of red orbs, think about spending them wisely on mobility abilities. Each character can unlock simple moves that make them run faster, as well as double jumps and an ability that lets you bounce on enemies' heads. You'll want these early because Devil May Cry 5's combat is much easier to deal with when you can dash and zip towards your foes at speed and juggle them more effectively in the air. You might also want to specifically skill into Dante's Trickster tree if you like that style of play. 8. Purchase gold orbs and blue or purple fragments from Nico. Gold orbs are basically extra lives in Devil May Cry 5, bringing you back from defeat and fully equipped to fight on. while blue and purple orb fragments raise your max health and devil triggers respectively. You can find them in the world, but like any good hack and slash, you can also buy them in the Devil May Cry van. You'll want to consider spending cash on them early on if you want to survive, especially on Demon Hunter difficulty, as this game is challenging. You're going to want as much health and devil trigger power as possible to stay afloat, as well as the ability to come back when you don't. It's a lofty price to pay initially when you're picking and choosing at the start, but it's not like you're ever really out of pocket, and you can always replay levels to earn more cash. 9. Click the left stick to find your objective if you get lost. Some of the later levels can border on labyrinthian, with multiple crossroads and checkpoints that switch up the environment. This can disorientate you, so make sure you know how to fix it. Click in the left analog stick on your controller and the game will point you towards your objective. 10. Don't forget to use NERO'S Exceed ability. One of NERO'S abilities is very easily forgotten, but it's by far one of the most devastating. Exceed is an ability where Nero revs up his Red Queen sword to boost its attack. Don't think about it too much. This is done by hammering the left bumper, and aside from feeling cool, it will power up Nero's sword and pistol to deal extra damage. You can even unlock upgrades that let you tap Exceed after an attack to deal an aftershock explosion to the enemies. It's worth a few revs if you feel like you're slamming your head against a brick wall.
Without strength, can't protect anything. I know that.